Welcome. I'm Bill McGinnis, District Masonic Relations Officer of Masonic District 16. We're here today at Armadillo Acres, the Leonard Harvey farm near where he was born in Cherokee County, Texas. He's fond of saying it's just a wagon's greasing from Atoy, Texas, and we're here today to interview Leonard P. Harvey. I'd like to tell you a little bit about Leonard Harvey first. As we said, he was born near here, and in World War II joined the Merchant Marine. The problem with joining the Merchant Marine was Leonard was only 15 years old, and they soon discovered that. He was sent back home. After being sent home, though, he shortly joined the Signal Corps, the Army Signal Corps, in World War II. After serving in World War II in 1948, Leonard married the lovely Lena Ruth Wiley and came home to Texas. As far as employment goes, he was employed with the T. Ramey Company, which he later purchased and still owns. As far as his Masonic career is concerned, it is long and lengthy and illustrious. He was raised in Keystone Lodge, number 1143 in Dallas in 1954, and was master of that lodge in 1961 and 62. Leonard became District Deputy Grand Master in 1963 and was the Dallas Area Workshop Chairman from 1964 through 1967. He was a member of the Committee on Masonic Education and Service and authored Masonry and the Mason, which is still handed out to Texas Masons today when they become a Master Mason. Leonard became Right Worshipful Grand Junior Warden in 1986, Grand Senior Warden in 1987, became Deputy Grand Master in 1988, and the Most Worshipful Grand Master of Masons of the Grand Lodge of Texas in 1989. But that's not all. Leonard also was Master of the Texas Lodge of Research in 1987 and 88. He's a member of all the York Rite and Scottish Rite bodies, being coroneted a 33rd degree Mason in 1987. He's a member of the Shrine, the Red Cross of Constantine, the Philalethes Society, and the Order of the Eastern Star. He's also a member of the Grotto, the National Sojourners, and the Heroes of 76. Leonard is an endowed member of Keystone Lodge, Terrell Lodge number 83, the Texas Lodge of Research, plus all of the York and Scottish Rite bodies. And of course, last but not least, he's the Grand Armadillo of Texas. But as another Harvey would say, you'll hear more about that when we get to the rest of the story.
Pedro, see if you can get old Lena Ruth up there. Tell her I need some instructions now. They Charlie Smith got right in the way.
Oh, no, Stan. We'll put them away.
And just put some chairs around them. So.
Sure. Take 4 chairs.
Okay, we're going to start out with question number 1 again, and let's get on the pride and unification. You said that you wanted, in your first Grandmaster's message, you wanted to unify the fraternity and put pride back in Masonry. Mm-hmm. Why did you start your year out with those goals?
Well, because in my travels throughout the Grand Jurisdiction, while I was going through the Grand Lodge line, and even before that, I could detect that all of our Masonic family were kind of out in the ball field playing with their own bat and ball, and nobody was playing on the team. As a matter of fact, they were more in competition with each other than they were unified and trying to accomplish anything together. And my concern was that all of our Masonic family, first and foremost, is they're Master Masons, regardless of what other organization they might belong to. And so I determined from what I'd observed that if I could do anything during 1989, I wanted to bring our Masonic family together as a unit, because there's so many things that we have going for us that we can be proud of if we just put forth the effort. And so I started out with that objective to create a unity among all these organizations so that we could have an objective out here of accomplishing things together as Master Masons, first and foremost. And then that would filter out or would be a part of our accomplishment because of the several charities that we're involved in. And I just wanted very badly to bring all these organizations together so that we could say we're a unified Masonic family in Texas. And then, whatever we accomplished, we would have a great deal of pride in having accomplished that. Not as a Scottish Rite Mason, not as a Shrine Mason, not as Eastern Star, but as a Mason and a Masonic family in Texas.
You said you wanted to put the pride back into Masonry. Why did you feel the pride was not in Texas Masonry, or where had it gone, or how did you feel about that, and why did you say that?
Well, in talking to people, like I was talking, going through the line, and trying to formulate my program for 1989, I found to my total amazement that our Masonic family, the Masons themselves, were more apologetic for being a Mason than they were for being proud of the fact that they were a Mason. And you would talk to a guy that had just finished his master's degree, and then he'd gone on, he'd taken his York Rite or his Scottish Rite and gone into the Shrine. And the fact of the matter is, he wasn't active in Blue Lodge, he wasn't active in any of the other organizations he belonged to. It was a functionary more than anything else. And like I say, when you see any member of any organization that's apologetic for the fact that he's a member, we've got a serious lacking in pride. And so I felt like there's too many things for Masons to be proud of, and I wanted to emphasize those things and recreate a degree of pride among our Masonic family.
Did that lack of pride, in your opinion, go beyond just the individual?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
How?
it did. Well, you could see the looseness in the organization of the various appendant bodies and orders. They were going through the motions instead of having objectives. You could go into a chapter and council meeting or a commander meeting. All you were getting was what had to be done. There was nothing out there. The leadership of these organizations weren't challenging the members of the organizations. And good grief, they were Masons. They needed a challenge. And I always say it, I don't care what you're active in. Get active in something. There's something in Masonry for every member of the Masonic Lodge. So there's something out there. I don't care whether it's York Rite, Scottish Rite, Shrine, Grotto, Eastern Star, working in a youth group. There's something to do out there, and the objective was to get them inspired to get out there and do something. And I could detect that they weren't too proud of what they were doing.
I mean, who you are in what district, and then you can say just nearly anything you want to about Leonard Harvey.
Within reason?
Within reason. Well, we can edit.
Clyde Kanister, Athens Lodge, District 17. I served as Leonard's district deputy his year as Grand Master, and I believe when everything is said and done in the Grand Lodge, we will find that Leonard will go down as one of the best Grand Masters the state of Texas has had. Thank you.
What was it like working with him? Yeah.
What did you say, Pete?
I say, now tell us the truth.
Well, I did get my appointment from Mrs. Harvey, so that's where my allegiance lies. So I have to say things like that for the Grand Master to keep her happy. You know how that goes. Working for Leonard was an experience because he was well known, well recognized, and people were glad to see him, and he gave the district deputies a sense of enthusiasm and made you want to go out and do your job, do the best job you could, to be a representative of him and make him proud of you. And I was honored to have served with him.
Leonard Harvey got a lot done in 1989. What do you feel like were among the top, in your mind, of your accomplishments? What are you proud of? What sticks out in your mind?
Well, you're right. When I went to Grand Lodge in December 1989, I was proud of what had taken place in 12 months. When I went into the job of Grand Master, I accepted the challenge to make a lot of things happen that weren't happening, and to correct a lot of things that were happening that were wrong. I think probably if I were to have to put it on the top shelf, I think my concern among our youth groups was one of the things that really bugged me. And it's something I don't like to talk about. It's something that is a history in Grand Lodge. But I think protecting the youth in our Masonic organization was something that had to be done, that had not been done. It had been overlooked. And when I was confronted with what I needed for ammunition to correct it, I corrected it. When I went to Grand Lodge backed me up 100%. And today we have very strict requirements. If a man's going to work with our youth group, any of our youth groups, he has to measure up. And I'm very proud of that, because our youth is the future of this fraternity. And if we don't take steps now to protect them, then we've let them down. And that's, to me, is totally un-Masonic. That's unthinkable. Another thing that I felt like needed to be done for quite some time was our Grand Lodge magazine. And so I felt like that we needed to make some corrections in the magazine. We needed it, from what I was hearing among the Masons of Texas, we just need to make some changes. And so we did that. The trustees at the time made the change. We re-engaged John Rasco in Houston and Jack Kelly, both excellent PR people, both know what they're doing. And so we came out with a new magazine, an entirely new format. And it generated a lot of good sentiment among the craft, and was emulated, really, by other grand jurisdictions. I got several phone calls and letters, congratulatory, and inquiries. How did you do this, and what is it costing, and all that. Then I think, coupled with that, and recommending to the Grand Lodge that we create a public relations program, and that we fund that program. And I went into that with a great deal of trepidation. Yet the Masons of Texas, instead of honoring what I asked for to fund that, $1.50 per capita increase, Purposes and Policies Committee recommended that be amended to $2, and it passed without any discussion, as best I remember. I think that's a major accomplishment, and I think it's something that's going to have to be continued to be effective, and the Masons of Texas is going to have to make some adjustments in their thinking about it. And then I think that I instilled some pride in the lodges by proclaiming that if a man's going to serve as master of the lodge, he ought to at least know how to open and close the lodge. That was expanded later on to include the 2 wardens, and then the esoteric part of that I required was expanded to include lodge management. I think that has gone a long way in instilling some pride that I was concerned that we reinstill in our fraternity. There's several other things that would be awfully difficult for me to sit here and number them one by one that we did accomplish, but I do know that we went to Grand Lodge loaded, and we came away from Grand Lodge only suffering one setback out of all those things. And everything that I recommended was a progressive ideas for our Grand Lodge. And I'm happy to say that they bought all of them but one, and it's something that still will come.
Well, it's right.
I just another thing that, in retrospect and thinking about what I went to Grand Lodge with in the way of an accomplishment. I have all my Masonic life been concerned about our system of Masonic discipline. Where we have Masonic trials over some of the silliest things that you ever heard of, and yet in other instances we avoid Masonic trials because we're afraid of what the impact might be on our fraternity, the bad publicity, if you would. Well, I take the attitude that if you have dirty laundry, you need to wash it, and whether or not you wash it in public is a matter of choice. And we have some gross things that happen in our fraternity. And one of the things that I did was I recommended to our Grand Lodge, well, I devised a form and used it myself while I was Grand Master. And then Grand Lodge adopted it. And it's a method that we can dispose of some of our problems in Masonry without having to involve the public so far as witnesses and things like that are concerned. So we devised this method of expulsion for these gross Masonic offenses, where a guy, you confront him with the evidence and assure him that he doesn't have a prayer anyway, and he voluntarily signs an agreement that he's permanently expelled from the fraternity. I think that's an accomplishment. It might seem trite, but I've seen what has happened to communities when you go through a Masonic trial. This doesn't generate any pride in our fraternity. So that's another thing that I feel like we accomplished so far as the reputation and good name of our fraternity is concerned.
I'm Jack Cole from District 21 here in Jacksonville and Alto, and I enjoyed the year that we had. It was busy, but now I think they've appointed 2 more officers, or 2 more district officers, to do what we did the year we were district deputies, but we all enjoyed it and had a real good time.
What was it like working with Leonard?
Real good. He was real understanding, and you knew exactly what he wanted, and it was well understood. And when you done what he wanted you to, well, it was all right. If it wasn't, well, he told you about it. There were no questions asked.
Some of them said he was tough. Was he tough?
Well, as long as you done what he told you to, he wasn't tough. But it was real busy, I'll say that. And I enjoyed it, and glad I was under him.
Okay. You said you've got the 3rd annual Grand Armadillo Roundup, and there's probably better part of 100 people down by the barn behind us right now and involved and enjoying themselves today, and they're here, and they're some of the people you were dealing with. Who all helped?
Oh, well, I'll tell you. Of course, any Grandmaster has a rude awakening when all of a sudden it dawns on him, hey, I'm going to be Grandmaster. Or I am Grandmaster. Some of them wait that long to decide. But what you see here represents all these wonderful people that are here at our place today. These people represent the nuts and bolts of a Grandmaster's administration. And a Grandmaster who is dumb enough to think that he can do it without the wholehearted support of a group of district deputies, well, I don't think he ought to be Grandmaster in the first place if he thinks he can do it. But I happen to be one of those fortunate Grandmasters that through my own knowledge of brethren all over the state. Now, mind you, I traveled over this state from really 1980 until I was elected in 1985 to the bottom rung of the ladder. And then I had 3 more years before being elected and installed Grand Master to become acquainted with a lot of people. And you just naturally are exposed to movers and shakers out there. So when it came time for me to select district deputies, I probably knew personally 2/3 of those 135 who would serve in 1989. And then the others, I leaned very heavily on people who I knew real well to recommend those guys to me. So that's the way you accumulate your district deputies. And if I were to say to who I owe the most, I would say I owe the most to these brethren who are here today, back for the 3rd annual reunion. And the reason they're here is because we created a family. We really did. A Masonic family. Their wives and my wife were very close. These brethren and myself were very close. So we had a very close-knit Grand Lodge family. Well, in addition to these, there were key people on every committee, I suppose, that that I leaned on. I think of the jurisprudence committee and some of the difficulties that I had. Think about the purposes and policies committee and steering things through. The Masonic Education Service Committee, all these committee members, when you ask them to do something, they did it. The past Grand Masters were very supportive of me during 1989. I did an unheard of thing when I was Deputy Grand Master in May of 1988. I went to then Grand Master Graham Childress and I said, "Say, I have a squirrely idea that the past Grand Masters are a forgotten lot of people. There's a lot of experience out there that nobody's drawn on, and you're the Grand Master, and I would like your permission to call a meeting of the past Grand Masters over at the Masonic Home and School." And he gave me written permission to do that. And I started talking to some other people. I said, "Hey, these past Grand Masters are not interested in that. They're not going to do anything. They're not going to come to a meeting like that. Not interested." So I wrote all of them a letter. Told them that I would like very much to meet with them. I had some ideas that I wanted to project to them. And I was assured that if I had 7 or 8 past Grand Masters to be there, every living past Grand Master was there except 2. And we had a good day. And then during my year as Grand Master, we had 3 meetings with the past Grand Masters. When I went to my Grand Lodge, the week before I opened Grand Lodge, we had a meeting in Waco. Every past Grand Master knew what I was going to do. I kept them informed. And when I was going to be in their territory, they knew I was going to be there. And I didn't pull any surprises with them. When I went to my Grand Lodge, they all knew in advance what I was going to do and how I was going to do it. So I'd have to say the past Grand Masters were a major support for me in 1989. Now, I'm not saying that every one of them agreed with me 100%, but I am saying that I had their ear, and I could get on the telephone and I could call and talk to them about anything, and they would give me their ear. And that was awfully important to me.
Okay, you're current master of Terra Lodge number 83, and that's in Alto?
Yes, sir.
Is that right? What do you think about having the Grand Armadillo in your neck of the woods down here?
Well, sort of a cross we have to bear, but we survive.
That's twice that's been said. Why is everybody saying there's a cross to bear here? Explain it to me a little bit.
We have to put up with Right Worshipful. He comes down and visits quite a bit. And then we've got one member that we have to put up with. And I think they may be brothers, and y'all can quote me on this. Tell Leonard that I said John Biggs is his brother. He'll know this. And I think he may be kin to Roy, too. I'm not sure.
Does he come down here and come to y'all's lodge and participate and take
Yes,
part
sir.
and all that kind of thing?
Yes, sir. He comes down and sits over there and tries to keep us straight. It's a tough job.
You bet. Roy?
What?
Didn't think I was going to pick on you.
No, I sure didn't.
You've got an opportunity here to say anything you ever wanted to say about Leonard Harvey. Take off and run with it.
I don't know what to say about him, really. I don't. I guess that you could say he's a pretty nice guy, and I'd go at that. Huh? Oh, Roy Jemerson, District 21A, Jacksonville, Texas.
Tell me about
And I'm the district deputy of 16 in 1989. And that's about it.
What was it like working with Leonard?
Great. It really was. It was really great.
Why?
I don't know why. It was just great. Don't have no questions or anything like that. He didn't have no... whenever something needed to be done, he was there to help you. And also, I guess you could say it was just great. It was.
Everybody's saying he was tough. How was he tough? How? Give me an example of how he was tough.
Oh, good gracious. I don't know now.
He wasn't tough on you.
Yeah. No, he really wasn't tough on me. He believed in doing things right, doing it the right way. And so, everything, and like that. But I don't know.
Okay.
I just really don't know.
Be nice, Roy.
I'm trying to. I'm trying to be real nice.
Like we asked
I haven't said
before.
nothing.
Now, wait a minute. Like we said before. Now tell us the truth. Now.
No, I'm not gonna say that. I've just been trying to be real nice and not answer too many questions. So, but really, Leonard was really a great guy. I really did enjoy being district deputy that year and all.
Probably the biggest helper of them all. What about Lena Ruth? How'd you meet her, and how'd she help you during your year?
How did I meet her?
Yeah, I've heard that's quite a story. Let's get that out here.
Well, that is quite a story, I guess. Well, meeting her goes way back. Of course, I grew up in Buckner, Arkansas, up in Dallas, and you're not in Buckner, Arkansas unless you're a Baptist. And so when I left there, after my brother graduated, and the first thing I did was find the Baptist church in Dallas, and I went to Gaston Avenue Baptist Church. And that's where I met that lady. And didn't know her from Adam, and she came running up to me and wanted to borrow a nickel. And she hadn't paid me back since. But, yeah, I want to tell you, she has been a real helpmate all through the years. Her father was a Mason, past master of my mother lodge, Keystone Lodge in Dallas. And he and I had talked before Leonard Ruth and I got married. We talked several times about me going in as soon as I was 21 years old. It was all set that I was going to go into Keystone Lodge. Well, Leonard Ruth and I got married on July the 23rd, 1948. And I was 20 years old. And in 1949, I would have been 21 in March. Well, on December 7th, 1948, we went home one evening, and he had had a massive heart attack, and didn't last through the night. And for whatever reason, I lost my zeal for masonry. However, his friends up at the Gaston Avenue Baptist Church, people that he'd worked with, he worked for the old Dallas Railway and Terminal Company. He had told me, I don't know, maybe it was a sense that he had, but he said, if something should happen to me, talk to Frank or Emmett, all these people. And so one day in 1953, around the holiday season, I was up there at church, and 2 or 3 of those guys standing around talking. And so it was through that connection that I petitioned for masonry. And once I petitioned for masonry and went through the process of the line of officers in my lodge, back then you went through just about every station and place. And once I served as worshipful master, then I was out of worshipful master's office 6 months, and then was called on to serve as district deputy. And Lena Ruth was very supportive. She was in the Eastern Star, had been since she was 18. She was in a Masonic family. All of their friends were very active Masons in Eastern Star. So she knew what it was all about. She knew what Masonry was all about. She appreciated it. And then when I never did run for the Grand Line, as the saying goes. I never did really run. I was busy helping Grand Masters doing this Armadillo series and doing other things that he's done. And people asked me if they could nominate me a couple of years before I was nominated. And so one day I asked Lena Ruth, what do you think about it? And she said, well, let me ask you this. To answer your question, let me ask you this. Do you think you can contribute anything to Masonry by being Grand Master? And I said, well, I really think I can. I said, there's a lot of things that I see that we need that maybe I can contribute to. And she said, well, go for it. And, boy, she stuck it out with me all the way through.
A whole year of being the Grand Master's wife and a lot of years before that in this. And just what do you think about all this and some thoughts on that year and on Leonard?
Well, I wouldn't, I've heard a lot of people say, and I didn't know really what they meant. I guess the first one I heard say was Sam Hilburn, and he said, you know, the year I was Grand Master, I wouldn't take $1 million for it, but I wouldn't do it again for $1 million. But really, it was so much fun. You learn so much, and even through the trials and tribulations that you have to go through, it's worth it all. It really is. And you feel like you're adding something to Masonry, and that's what it's all about. I'm from a Masonic family. Both of my grandfathers were Master Masons. My father was a Master Mason and past Master of Keystone Lodge, member of all the bodies, and then, of course, Leonard's member, I guess, of everything that there is. And I'm a member of, excuse my throat, I'm a member of everything that the ladies can be a member of. And it's just a way of life with us, but I can't think of a better way of life than Masonry. It just has a tie that binds that nothing else really gives you. It's a fraternity that really means so much to you, and we would just think that if it were not for these people in Masonry, we would not know 90% of the...
Talking about being Grand Master, if you could write the qualifications for Grand Master, what would they be, and would you recommend the job to anybody else?
Oh, I'll answer the last question first. Yeah, I can recommend it. I can recommend the job to somebody else. Well, in the first place, we've got to have Grand Masters, you know. If we're going to have a Grand Lodge, we've got to have Grand Masters. I would digress from that just a little bit, though, and go back to another thing that happened in 1989 that I was a little bit disappointed in. And that is, I still feel very strongly today. I felt strongly when I was Grand Master that we put too much on a Grand Master. We expect too much of a Grand Master. Grand Masters should be more ceremonial and less administrative than they are. And I went all over the state in 1989 presenting my concept of what our Grand Lodge structure should be. This is one of the disappointments, one of the few disappointments that I had in 1989. But it will come someday. And our Grand Lodge needs a different administrative structure. We need to have a board of directors overseeing the affairs of our Grand Lodge, and let the Grand Master and the Grand Lodge officers do their ceremonial things. I feel very strongly about that, because we are very good at killing Grand Masters. If a Grand Master does what the brethren out here seem to expect him to do, it's a killing job. And when I completed my term, I was totally exhausted, physically drained, mentally drained and tired. And any Grand Master that comes close to doing what they expect of him is going to wind up that way. So, what do I think of the qualifications of Grand Master? It might sound awfully stupid, but I think first and foremost, before a guy even entertains the idea of being Grand Master, he should want to be Grand Master. You know, I hate to say this, and it's a sad commentary. I have seen and have experienced the office of Grand Master with Grand Masters who didn't really want to be Grand Master. They were Grand Master because of the political system that we have in our Grand Lodge. They're Grand Master because certain groups and factions push them to be Grand Master. So I think the first qualification is a man ought to want to be. And if a man doesn't want to be Grand Master, that's the fun and frolic. Are we picking that up on?
Probably.
That typifies our happy Masonic family that we have here today. One lady had a birthday yesterday, and another had a birthday today, I think. But anyway, where was that?
Well, you were talking about the qualifications for
Yeah.
Grand Master. We've got a couple more here to go, so we're pretty close to the end. If you're
Well, that's
wondering
all
about
right.
it.
I'm
The-
not
the-
in particular hurry.
The qualifications, you think a man ought to want to, and then
Yeah. And then I think you ought to be capable. Now, who am I to sit here and say that one brother is not capable of being Grand Master and another brother is capable of being Grand Master? Well, happily, our system takes up that slack, because You find a grandmaster who is a little bit short on capability, and for whatever reason, the brethren sense that, and they pick up, as they say in the country. Everybody starts pulling on the trace chain to help the grandmaster who is not quite so capable of being a grandmaster. Now this is an awful thing to even discuss. But I think we have to be realistic and admit that we've had to pull some through. Then I think you have the other. I think you have the opposite. I think you have those, in some instances, who are installed as grandmaster and they run too fast and they run too hard. I might have tried to run too fast and run too hard, or I might have been lacking in ability to do the job that I set out to do. Then I think another thing that a grandmaster needs, probably, he needs the support of these people that we've talking about that I've had. Too many times the grandmaster, I think, picks district deputies, or he picks a Grand Lodge officer to assist him, maybe a grand marshal or a grand chaplain. He picks them more because of the buddy system than he does because of what they can contribute to his administration as grandmaster. The grandmaster doesn't have to be super intelligent when it comes to organizational ability if he will use an organization, if he will form an organization and will utilize that organization. So one of the qualifications, he doesn't have to be a genius when it comes to administrative details, but he should surround himself with capable people who are. And in most instances, they'll stay in the background and will do the job, and it'll make a grandmaster look good. I could tell you instance after instance of the times when I was totally incapable of formulating certain things, and yet I knew the people who could do it and who could give me the advice to do it. And I think the difference between a successful grandmaster and an unsuccessful grandmaster lies in that real fine line of a willingness to utilize other people and a desire on his own to try to do it honestly. Does that make sense?
My name, Jose Swango. And what district am I from? I'm from, back then it was 14C. Now it's 14B in one lodge, 14A in the other, just District 14. But I wasn't a district deputy for Leonard. I had the distinct pleasure of being his assistant state coordinator and the Dallas coordinator for his workshop program. And also I had the real pleasure of being called the Grand Agitator. So that's a Grand Lodge office that nobody else has held, nobody else can hold. As long as I live, I will be the Grand Agitator.
Agitate me a little bit about Leonard.
That's agitation right there. Agitate you about Leonard. Well, first of all, he liked to stay at the Amera Suites. Second of all, he snored when he was sleeping in the van, and he just doesn't have enough hair on his head. There's nothing agitating about Leonard that I can say on this thing.
In Leonard Harvey's opinion, where is the Grand Lodge of Texas and Masonry in Texas? Where are they going? What's the future look like, in your opinion, for the Grand Lodge, especially the Grand Lodge and Masonry?
Well, boy, I could spend a lot of time talking about that subject. In the first place, where is Masonry in Texas going? Where's the Grand Lodge going? I think it has to be said right up front that for a while it's going to go down. And the reason that I say that is just in the cards. There's no way based on what has happened in the past at our peak years. We're running out of those people. We're not getting the new people in to replace them. And the reason we're not getting the new people in is a whole new subject, a whole new ballgame. But we are at least coming to grips with the fact that we can do something about that situation to get new people into our Masonic family. What is eventually going to happen? Eventually, Masonry is going to be watered down, if you please. Not to the extent that we're going to abandon all of our landmarks, all of the principles and tenets that we as present-day Masons hold so dear. But I fear to the extent that we're only going to have a few members of our fraternity. And that's what I mean, watered down in membership. But I think we're going to be stronger for it. I really believe that. Because we are going to have to rid ourselves of the mentality that we're suffering from now from some of the people who are holding back progress in Masonry simply because they think that we can still do it the way we used to do it and survive, and we can't do that. There's no way we can do that. Let me give you, for instance, this is happening in 1992, in November of 1992. And at our Grand Lodge session next year, we're going to deal with a resolution that I helped to author, and that has to do with solicitation. Whether Masons will admit it or not, historically they have been guilty of soliciting. They do it two ways. They either solicit a man to become a part of us, or they solicit a man never to think about it. Just by the way they act. You know, so solicitation is not what we have always associated it with being. I feel very strongly, and I've done it many, many times, that I've been on an airplane, the guy see my ring. He said, "Oh, I see you're a Mason." "Yeah, I'm a Mason." "Are you a Mason?" "No, I'm not, but my daddy was, or my uncle. My uncle's the vice master of Podunk Lodge, or both of my granddaddies were masters of their lodge." And you let them talk a minute, and you say, "Well, is there any particular reason you're not a Mason?" "Well, I've never been asked." Well, so all the way around the horn to this resolution that we're going to deal with. I think that there's such a thing as proper solicitation. I think it's time that Masonry defined what that is. And this is what we've tried to do in this resolution. And it's going to have its impact, and I believe Grand Lodge will pass it. When you're looking back at this thing 20 years from now, I might have egg on my face, but I don't believe so. I think the Masons of Texas have finally come to realize we're going to have to approach it from a different perspective. So what do I see for the future of Masonry in Texas? I see a smaller group of Masons who represent this fraternity. I see a more educated group. I see a group of Masons in almost every community that's going to be involved in the community, because through our public relations we're going to create an awareness of what Masonry is and is not. We're going to have half the lodges in 10 years that we have now, if we have that many lodges. That'll be a blessing, because we have lodges out here. There's no logical reason for their existence. A lot of them are existing today because they're dishonest about it. They don't meet the criteria for holding a charter in a Masonic lodge. So this is going to evolve through consolidations, through demise, and it's awfully hard to say, but it's going to be a blessing. When it all settles out, when it filters down, we're going to have a stronger fraternity. We're going to have a more aggressive fraternity. One of our aggressive concepts is going to come about because of what's happening today among Southern Baptists. everywhere I've gone, Lena Ruth and I just got back from the Grand Lodge of Oklahoma. We're going to be going to the Grand Lodge of Arkansas. We visit with other grand jurisdictions. We're not the only ones that's upset about this thing, and Masonry has sat around for years and has been very passive in its response to criticism. The time has come to get up on our haunches and to let the world know who we are and what we're all about. And you know what's the funny thing about that? Is Masons today, the old heads, who have been of the ilk that Masonry is a secret organization, they finally come to admit that we shot ourselves in the foot. And we have, because the mentality that we have today is a direct result of what we've taught Masons for years. And one of the things that I said in my recommendation on public relations, we need to spend 5 years teaching Masons who they are, where they came from, and what they're all about. And I see it coming. So what do I see in the state of Texas by the year 2000? A leaner, meaner organization of Masons that are going to be more concerned about doing something and doing something positive.
To say anything you'd ever want to tell us about Leonard Harvey, just tell me who you are and what district, and then just lay it on him.
Golly, you mean I can really do this? He's a past Grand Master, so I don't have to worry about any repercussions now, do I? Well, I was in 14B in Dallas, Texas, and I had the cross to bear that he was from Dallas, too. And everything I went to do and see about, he seemed like he was always there looking over my shoulder. And I couldn't get anything done. So I finally had to send him off out of town to get a few things that I had to do right, get done. And when he come back, well, it was straight then, and everything was fine. And I enjoyed my year as a deputy for Leonard Harvey, but I just don't think I'd like to do it for him again. He's tough.
For the Masons of the year 2000, we have to explain. Let's talk about the Grand Armadillo a little bit. Can you explain that to me? Or to them?
Well, Lena Ruth has often said, honey, I wish that you'd have told that story about something besides an armadillo. But, you know, I was sitting right down here at my farm where this taping is taking place. It was probably, this will take a while because I don't think it's an interesting story. It was probably in April or May of 1981. And Jimmy Wilson was Deputy Grand Master at that time, and Jack Kelly, and those looking at this tape later on will recognize those guys as eventually serving as Grand Master ahead of me. But Jack Kelly was going to coordinate Jimmy's conferences that he was going to have over the state. And so they were down in San Antonio at Jack's house, and this happened rather late in the evening, and I was sitting here in my comfortable den enjoying a small libation, and I was reading, and the phone rang. And it was Jack and Jimmy on the phone down there, and they wanted me to participate in Jimmy's regional conferences. I said, well, what do you want me to do? Well, they said, we want you to do something along the line of the workshop program that we had back in the 60s. And they knew that I was gung-ho on that workshop program and the concept that it taught lodge officers by involvement in a given situation. So, okay, I said, well, I'll think about it. And so the bottom line was that I agreed to work up a series of situations that would be presented at these regional conferences. And then the brethren would be the ones responsible for solving those situations in a real live deal. So I never will forget, it was the first conference that we had down in the Rio Grande Valley. And being from East Texas and being kind of full of East Texanese, I was having a hard time getting these lodge officers. This was something new. They didn't know whether it was a trick. They didn't know what I was trying to do to them. And so I couldn't get any volunteers to do anything. Well, I used the analogy. You know, I said to those guys, I said, oh, give it a shot. Every armadillo don't make it across the road. Meaning that if they answered the question wrong, they just splattered out in the middle of the road, you know, and they might look up and answer the question properly, and they would get across the road. Well, that stuck. And they started calling me the Grand Armadillo. Well, when we went to Jimmy's Grand Lodge in December of '82, he presented me with a picture, which is in here in the den, and the Grand Armadillo. Well, along midterm of Jimmy Wilson's year, where Buddy Backus was coming along to be Grand Master, he wanted me to do exactly the same type of thing. So I had to scratch around and find another series for the Armadillo series. So it was something that really stuck, and by the time Bob Scott came along in 1985, we were still doing it. It was getting a little bit old, and had served its purpose, I guess. So really, it wasn't a difficult thing at all. When I was nominated for the office of Grand Junior Warden, it wasn't a difficult association. It really wasn't, because going all over the state all those years and being known as a Grand Armadillo, it worked. Yes. Unwittingly, it worked.
In closing, Leonard, what would you say to a new Master Mason, just raised, just starting out in the craft? What would you say to him about his Masonic road that stretched out in front of him?
Well, you know, it's really kind of strange that I would be asked a question like that, because just as recently as this last week, there were a group of us sitting around in Guthrie, Oklahoma, and we were talking. And almost the same question came up. And the Grand Master of Oklahoma asked me, where do you think we're missing the boat? I said, well, it starts as soon as we raise that Master Mason. That's where we start missing the boat. He said, how so? I said, well, the first thing I think we ought to do to Master Mason is we ought to teach him who he is, where he came from, what his purpose is. In other words, teach him some basic Masonology. And I don't know. I get mixed emotions about where the Grand Lodge role in this ought to be. I think very strongly that Grand Lodge is responsible for that, and I think Grand Lodge has evaded its responsibility. But if I were telling a brand new Master Mason sitting right here today what he should do, I'd say, before you're interested in anything else, find out what Masonry is. Convince yourself and satisfy yourself why you're a Mason. Why did you want to be a Mason in the first place? Read all you can find to read about Masonry before you have any design whatsoever on becoming an officer of your lodge. I think very strongly we have ruined hundreds and hundreds of beautiful Masons by taking them right out of the master's examination and putting them in as senior warden of the lodge. And you know, we have a tendency to brag about it. It's one of the most asinine things I've ever heard of. I would tell that new Mason, don't concern yourself too much just yet about whether you're going to be a York Rite Mason or a Scottish Rite Mason or a member of the Grotto. Don't concern yourself just yet as to whether you're going to go in the Eastern Star, whether you're going to get your wife involved in any part of your Masonic career. find out what you want her to get involved in before you ask her to get involved. Be sure you can be proud of your involvement in an organization before you take her into that organization. I tell him to learn who he is, what he's all about, and then decide where he wants to go. And when he decides where he wants to go, be sure he goes there for the right reason to accomplish the proper objective.
Thank you, Leonard.
You're welcome.